Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Steady increase in sales to do with anything to do with snow.
Bracing for a weekend of snow and cold. What to expect where you live. Also,
it's been associated with Nigeria and travel to Nigeria.
Another new variant confirmed in BC as more COVID-19 vaccines arrive in our province. And
it's an entirely virtual event held online for the community.
Gong Hei Fat Choi, celebrating the year of the ox during the global pandemic.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Anita is off tonight. Well, many of us will be getting our first real blast of winter on the South Coast this weekend. Snow is expected in many areas, even some that aren't used to it. Our Dan Burrett joins us now live with more. Dan?
Mike, we haven't felt cold like this on the South Coast in about a decade. And as per usual, city crews are busy with the prep. The city of Vancouver says it has laid in 3,000 tons of salt and 100 vehicles, and plenty of staff are ready to brine and salt the major routes. They remind property owners, renters, and businesses they need to clear sidewalks and walkways around their property by 10 a.m. every day. The city has also opened several warming shelters from today all the way up to Tuesday. Now, yesterday it was cold and wind in the Fraser Valley. That was a big concern, especially for people experiencing homelessness. In some cases, shelters brought more people inside despite COVID concerns. Now, Vancouver Island is bracing for a bit of a snow punch this weekend. Victoria and the Capital Region not overly used to a lot of it. Preparations are underway, as you can see, people laying in all sorts of supplies. BC Hydro says it has seen some power spikes amid this colder weather. The utility is waiting to see what kind of snow falls. Joe will tell us in a few moments. Heavy, wet snow on branches and power lines, not great. As usual, it has some advice for customers.
Make sure you look at where the drafts are. If you have some blinds over your windows, put some heavy blinds, heavy curtains over your windows. If you have a space heater, make sure it's just used in the room that you're using it, not leaving it on in rooms that aren't being used. Close doors in rooms that aren't being occupied.
And if you can set your thermostat automatically, do that too. And now we wait for the snowfall, and we'll have more at 11. Mike.
Yes, we do. All right, Dan, thanks very much. Dan Burrett reporting live tonight. Let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe now, tracking the snow and the cold for us tonight. Joe?
Yeah, with much anticipation. I've got some news to report. The snow is starting to fall across the island. This big Pacific storm we're watching both sides of the strait has started for the island. It's still a whiles away, though, before it fills in for the lower mainland. I want to take you right to the radar so you can see the advancing Pacific storm. Already, the radar is showing moisture over Victoria, but the atmosphere is so dry, it's not filling in quite yet. But I am hearing reports of flurries back around Port Renfrew in the southern Gulf Islands, starting to see the flakes fly, and things will fill in for the island in the next couple of hours. This is a big story for Vancouver Island, particularly Victoria and the southern Gulf Islands. It's going to have a hard time crossing the strait, getting into the heart of the Arctic air for the lower mainland, which is why there are so many questions about snowfall totals tomorrow. The island is under a winter storm warning that is being upgraded from a watch today, and our Arctic outflow warnings have ended as that Pacific air moves in. So winds won't quite be as strong tomorrow morning. Still looking at wind chills across the lower mainland in and around the -8 mark for tomorrow. But this is battleground right over Vancouver as that moist Pacific air meets the dry Arctic air in place. The models continue to flip-flop at this hour. So I'm going to tell you what I'm leaning towards, starting you at 11 p.m. So that's when I think the snow is going to really start to pick up for Victoria, beginning to fill in through the south. Surprising that we'll see higher snow totals towards the strait in Victoria because of those easterly winds enhancing things along the water. I think it's going to take a little longer to fill in for Vancouver. Some models showing it starting as early as 7. I think it's too dry to see anything until mid-morning, afternoon hours. But I do think there's a shot that we could be talking 5 to 10 centimeters for parts of Metro Vancouver through Saturday. This system sinks then down to the south by Saturday evening. If we don't get the snow we want, there's another chance on Sunday, and I'm going to be timing that system out as it follows the same track as we head into, there we go, a very snowy long weekend forecast. We'll take you through some of those snowfall amounts coming up.
All right, you have us intrigued. Keep on tracking it, and we will talk with you again in a little bit. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
To the latest now on COVID-19 in our province tonight. Encouraging news and concern from BC's top doctor. 10 more deaths, 445 new cases. Susanna De Silva is live with word of another new variant tonight. So, Susanna, what does this mean for our fight against the virus?
Well, this really highlights the concerns that health officials like Dr. Bonnie Henry have and why they are watching so closely for them. In this case, it is the first case associated with the variant first found in Nigeria. They believe it is associated with a traveler rather, and that this person has not passed it on. But it's why they are monitoring so closely, because they feel if these variants were to catch on here, they could spread rapidly and really change the trajectory of the pandemic here in this province. But so far, that does not appear to be the case. They did do testing, screening on all of the COVID positive cases between January 30th and February 5th, just over 3,000. They only found 3 of them that were variants. That's about 0.1%, a number that Dr. Bonnie Henry said is good, but again, could change quickly.
We're in such a tricky place right now because we don't yet know the impact of these variants. We are monitoring carefully, and the point prevalence that I mentioned that was done by our laboratory colleagues this week, that gives us some reassurance that we're not seeing a lot of transmission, but it only takes a few introductions for it to take off.
Now, so far, we've seen 29 cases of the variant first seen in the UK, 17 associated with South Africa, all of those connected to travelers or close contacts of travelers. Except for 2 of those South African cases, they still don't know where those people picked them up.
Okay, Susie, and Dr. Henry also gave an update on vaccinations and the supplies that have been hard to come by recently here. What do the next few weeks look like?
Well, things should be picking up. We do expect to get about 55,000 doses of Pfizer next week. Moderna also picking up those numbers, still a bit more in question, but that will allow the province to again begin the mass vaccination, the vaccinations they have been doing so far in phase 1. Now, there were some questions to her about the possibility of needing to mix and match vaccinations. She says it is allowed as long as the same kind of vaccine, an mRNA vaccine, which Pfizer and Moderna are. So people could get, say, Moderna first, Pfizer second. It's preferable not to do that. She says they're still on track to have people receive the same kind of both doses, but they are watching that. Another question was also for those who have already had COVID, that 1 dose has shown to give a good immune response. So those people may not be targeted for a second dose right away if there is a shortage. Now, overall, what this means for the pandemic, there are still questions about the vaccines in terms of how long immunity lasts. Are we going to need a booster every year, every 2 years, every 5 years? And she says there is still a lot of studying that needs to be done.
I think there's a growing sense from most of us that we're going to see it as a recurring respiratory virus in the respiratory season, so fall and winter for us over the coming years. But whether we have enough immunity that it's not going to cause these explosive outbreaks, we hope that that's not going to happen, that things will settle down as immunity increases.
Now, so far, about 160,000 people have been vaccinated in the province. She is hoping that by the summer, a lot more people will have been vaccinated, that perhaps you could even have things like small gatherings. But that is still a long way away. We have Family Day weekend this weekend, Valentine's Day, of course. So she is reminding everyone to do whatever activities you're going to do within your household. Mike. All
right. Thanks, Susanna. Susanna De Silva reporting live tonight. And still with COVID-19, strict new quarantine and testing measures announced earlier now have an official start date, February 22nd. Air travelers coming to Canada from non-essential trips will have to take a PCR test on arrival and quarantine for 14 days.
We're not trying to punish people. We're trying to keep people safe. And keeping Canadians safe from the viruses and discouraging all non-essential travel and ensuring that if people do have to travel, they're doing the things that we can be certain are going to prevent the virus from spreading further in Canada, particularly given new variants. We'll continue to watch closely for additions or adjustments that need to be made to these measures. But every step of the way, what we're doing is to keep all Canadians safe.
In other news tonight, the Dutch man accused of tormenting and cyberbullying Port Coquitlam teen Amanda Todd says he wants to clear his name in our country. Aidan Coban appeared on video before a judge in New Westminster Supreme Court earlier today. The 42-year-old man was extradited to Canada in December and faces 5 charges, among them extortion, possession of child pornography, and criminal harassment. The judge has placed a sweeping publication ban on the trial, which is expected to begin in 8 months. Amanda Todd was 15 when she took her own life after sexualized images were shared online. Homicide investigators are searching a neighborhood in South Burnaby after a man was shot to death. Police found 44-year-old Neil Pratap suffering from gunshot wounds at about 10 last night near Gilly Avenue and McKee Street. He was rushed to hospital, but he didn't survive. It happened near the scene of another fatal shooting just over a week ago.
Are these two incidents related? And right now, there's nothing to suggest that these two incidents, the homicide of Chris Kenworthy and our recent victim from last night.
Investigators believe Pratap was meeting somebody in that area before he was killed. Police say the shooting appears to have been targeted. Well, taxi companies in BC are struggling to survive these days, facing off against new competition from ride-hailing companies and a worldwide pandemic. As Joel Ballard reports, they say the future looks grim.
Kulwant Sahota has been driving taxis in Vancouver for 25 years, but business has never been this bad.
Well, we're down 70% at least.
The industry has been decimated by the 1-2 punch of COVID-19 and ride-hailing. With tourism gone and restrictions in place, business has dried up. Pre-pandemic, drivers would pick up 15 fares a day. Now, Sahota says they're lucky if they see even 7. It's not uncommon to make less than minimum wage for a day's work. And then there's the fees they have to pay to the company, for insurance.
Especially when it's your vehicle, you've got to put repairs in and everything. I mean, you know, you're meeting your cost and maybe you gain maybe $25, $30, $40 on top.
Plus, there's new competition in town.
We've been really hit hard by ride sharing. The biggest reason is the pricing.
The Passenger Transportation Board set a minimum rate for ride-sharing prices equal to the starting rate of taxis. But Sahota says companies like Uber and Lyft are able to offer unlimited discounts thanks to their hefty coffers.
How do you compete with companies that lower their fares down to $3.35, that are even lower the transit fares? I mean, you can't compete against that.
The effects felt right across the industry. Normally, these taxi company parking lots would sit empty. These days, packed with parked cars.
Having it, if they continue to do this and continue to undercut us, we can't survive. We won't survive.
Bauer says taxis are a vital needed service, one that can't be entirely replaced by ride-hailing.
And we have people that rely on us. Not everybody has a credit card. Not everybody can ride with a ride-share company. Not everybody feels comfortable with a ride-share company. So it is a necessity.
She's asking for the Passenger Transportation Board to conduct a review, one that reconsiders placing a cap on the number of ride-hail drivers allowed on BC roads and creates a level playing field in pricing.
It's time for a review, you know, because all you're doing is putting people out of business, and it's not necessary. Everyone can have a little piece of the pie, and everybody can work together.
Whether that review is coming is unclear. The Passenger Transportation Board never responded to a request by the CBC. This company just hopes it happens before it's too late. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
I'll call it a dividing line of sorts. A fence has gone up in the middle of East Vancouver's Strathcona Park. The park board is asking residents of the homeless camp there to move from the east to the west side of the fence so the community can use that area. Most of the 200 illegal campers are on the east side. An order gives them until 10 a.m. next Wednesday to pack up.
They've all signed up for housing with the services, so that's a good thing. As well, they've agreed that, they understand that we want to return the west side back to the community, and they've agreed to work with us.
Rosa says they delayed putting up the fence after a camp leader was arrested for allegedly invading a senior's home. Well, Gong Hei Fat Choi, the Lunar New Year, the year of the ox, is underway tonight. Celebrations typically draw big crowds, but as the CBC's Rafferty Baker reports, Those festivities are now being held virtually in line with public health orders.
It was one of the last big public celebrations in BC before the pandemic hit. Lunar New Year celebration in Vancouver's Chinatown. Busy, crowded, and colorful. But with public health orders banning gatherings, that's not an option, which means heavily reworking plans.
The lion dance is not just a performance, it's actually a ceremonial blessing to bring in the new year.
Michael Tan has been involved in performing lion dances for about 20 years.
We would do multiple days worth, multiple events, upwards of, if you were at them all together, probably upwards of 30 to 50 performances.
This year, his energy is going into a last-minute effort to bring the performances online. Tan and a group of about 6 other volunteers have spent the last 8 days, late nights, preparing for something they've never done before.
It's an entirely virtual event held online for the community. It has all the trappings of what you would normally see during Lunar New Year celebrations, including lion dance, of course, kung fu demonstrations, Chinese singing and dance.
Tan says this year they're adding to the tradition. There will be a dumpling eating competition. In Richmond, at the Lingyan Mountain Temple, annual traditions have also dramatically changed.
Most people come here to pray for the good year ahead, so for the good luck and good fortune. So usually we have more than 3,000 people come here to pray.
Before the pandemic, the temple barely had a website. Fong and the other masters who live here don't use technology like computers, but volunteers have been doing live streams for many months now, and that's how the Lunar New Year will be shared in the community. Nuns have to prepare the offerings to Buddha instead of volunteers, and they also have to make them on behalf of benefactors watching online.
All of the temple's masters will hold a lamp offering and prayer in order to pray for the pandemic to settle down soon and for peace and happiness of all sentient beings.
It's not ideal, but Fong sees an upside to the changes.
I think the live stream or the virtual event can also help us to promote Buddhism.
And Tan says the lion dance online performance may even stick around after the pandemic.
I hope we come back and do, of course, in-person events, but I don't see this going away entirely.
Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
Black activists in our province say they are exhausted. They've been working relentlessly off the sides of their desks and volunteering to fight racial injustices. Tonight we're hearing from 2 activists who are renewing their calls for action from the government and the public.
I feel all this activism and trying to make a change has been extremely exhausting.
It's very common for people to feel like the weight of the Black community is on their shoulders. I've been with ARC for about 7 months, but I've been a social justice and community activist my entire life. You know, I'm not able to go out and see my friends and see my family and do things that I enjoy, but it's fine because this work needs to be done. I'm fine with setting aside my personal life, but it's important to know that I don't have one because I'm really busy trying to fight systems of oppression.
I feel an activist my whole life. The impact of having to continuously say I'm tired, or even to see that how exhausted or drained I am, has been sad. As an actress, I've had to sacrifice certain opportunities because at the time I had to put activism first, and I had to put that life and other lives before that and make a choice because, you know, there are a lot of roles that will come and go, but activism was a calling that I could not ignore.
You often feel that like you're carrying that burden. You're carrying the burden of, you know, your parents and your grandparents and people who, you know, didn't have opportunities, people who had to wear their hair a certain way, people who, you know, were slaves and hanging from trees. at some point, you start to feel like a beggar, like you're holding your hands out, and you just want some sort of acknowledgement from somebody. You want anything, just, some change or a few crumbs of bread, because doing something is better than doing nothing.
The changes that I want to see is first the education system recognizing and adding more Black history to their curriculum, and not just Black History Month.
And we have breaking news now out of the Whistler Blackcomb area tonight. RCMP confirming one person has been killed in an avalanche there. 2 other people have been injured after getting caught in that avalanche in the Sea to Sky backcountry. It happened near Blackcomb Glacier about 3:20 this afternoon. 2 people were found with those injuries, 1 uninjured, and as we said, 1 person was pronounced dead by a doctor in the area. Whistler RCMP are working with Whistler Blackcomb Ski Patrol, Blackcomb helicopters, and avalanche technicians to see if anyone else was caught in that avalanche. And a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on CBC Gem. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, after weeks of uncertainty over vaccine supply coming into this country, the government says there's light at the end of the tunnel. We'll bring you up to date on that just ahead. (6:21). Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, 2 more spins around the sun until Valentine's Day. The basic standby, dinner, and a movie. Hard to pull off with the current stay-at-home orders, at least in Ontario, but as CBC's Sanjay Maru shows us, there's still time to find a way to celebrate love during a lockdown.
So I actually have somebody's order here. So here's the outside, and on the inside, she has 4 cake pops, and the center one is a breakable one filled with Smarties.
Haley Bachman has been quite busy as Valentine's Day approaches, turning her love of baking into a stay-at-home business opportunity.
It's a lot harder for people to go out to the stores and buy their significant other things, so I figured it's time to, show off my creativity.
She's adapting like so many others for Valentine's Day. Here's how some of you told us you'll be celebrating. Amanda says she'll be ordering takeout, and she bought a Valentine's gift from a small business to support local. Daisy says her Valentine's Day will feature heart-shaped pizza and heart-shaped brownies at home with their 90-pound fur child. And then there's Phil, who plans to make chicken marsala from scratch for his loved one with a romantic comedy and some snuggles in front of the fire. But this comment really caught the eye. From Lisa. It is our 23rd wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day. The day we got engaged, we went to Piccolo's to celebrate. So what better way to celebrate than ordering takeout from Piccolo's?
You can't go and sit down in a nice restaurant. You can't go have a nice evening out as we would typically expect on a holiday such as Valentine's Day.
Butera says there are many ways people can still enjoy Valentine's Day despite restrictions on going out. Cooking together, doing crafts, flowers, a movie night. But relationship experts say as pandemic-related stress mounts, taking Valentine's Day off this year could be a good option for some couples.
Making every moment special, it might just be giving a hug or an extra 5 minutes of your time, listening, and not feeling that I have to do something for Valentine's Day. Step away from the societal expectations and just really connect with our partners and see what does he or she really need today.
And regardless how you're celebrating Valentine's Day this year, businesses across the region are adapting. Some have put Valentine's-themed kits together. This one lets couples make their own cocktails. Virtual cards, also an option. Or there's your neighbor who might be making Valentine's treats from their home. But no matter how you're celebrating Valentine's Day, the message is the same. Love can be in the air, just don't let it leave your household. Sanjay Maru, CBC News, Windsor.
There you go, love during the lockdown. Okay, back in just a few moments with an update on Canada's vaccine supplier. Until then, check out this live shot of downtown Vancouver on this Friday night at 6:24 as we head in to the Family Day weekend. With more COVID-19 variants spreading across Canada, the government is adding more tools to try to contain the virus. As David Cochrane reports tonight, Ottawa is getting stricter on non-essential travel and getting a sorely needed boost to its vaccine supply.
After weeks of bad news on vaccines, a dose of good news.
From Pfizer, we'll be getting the next doses sooner.
4 million Pfizer doses by the end of March and accelerating from there. Pfizer has agreed to boost deliveries from April to June by an additional 3 million doses and promising to deliver a total of 40 million by September.
That's part of the reason why we can say with such confidence that everyone who wants a vaccine in Canada will get one by the end of September.
But it's still February, vaccines still in short supply and variants spreading. So new measures to restrict travel by land and by air.
It is up to the traveler to choose where they wish to stay and book in advance of departure.
On February 15th, the rules for non-essential travel get tougher. Anyone entering Canada at a land border will have to show proof of a negative test or face consequences.
There may be substantial fines going up to as much as $3,000 or even a criminal prosecution for those who fail to produce proof of a valid COVID-19 molecular test.
A week later, on February 22nd, it gets tougher still. Another mandatory test on arrival at a land border, then yet another test after a 14-day quarantine.
So we would urge you, cancel your vacation plans, stay home.
But if you won't, new airport measures for international travelers also come into force on the 22nd. Additional mandatory testing on arrival and mandatory quarantine in a hotel.
Travelers will be required to stay at their reserved hotel for up to 3 nights at their own cost while they await the results of their arrival tests.
There will be exemptions to these requirements, but the goal is to keep those as limited as possible, mostly for essential travel and, if necessary, on compassionate grounds. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
A new program in Denmark could soon allow those who receive the COVID-19 vaccine to attend large events and move about more freely. However, as Renee Filipponi tells us, some feel the digital vaccine passport excludes those who can't get vaccinated.
It's already a vaccination leader in Europe, and now Denmark is one of the first to promise a digital vaccine passport. For these frontline workers, that could mean more freedom.
I think lots of people will use it, and for the world economy, it will be good, so we can move on.
It's a push to get life back to normal, the potential to open up travel, restaurants, even concerts for those who have been vaccinated.
It's an app that you can download.
IBM is pitching its technology, an app using a QR code that, when scanned, gives COVID information, including test results and vaccine status.
The more countries that will connect to a platform where this information can be shared, the more valuable the platform gets. But we need to start somewhere.
Concerns have been raised about privacy and that people who can't get a vaccine would be unable to return to normal life.
The drive here in Denmark mostly comes from business life and politicians.
This virologist also has public health concerns, not only because the vaccine doesn't give 100% immunity, but because of mutations.
There are these variants, and just a single introduction could be sufficient to cause serious harm to the Danish society. So I don't see that the passport can work on its own.
But for businesses, it can't come soon enough. The owner of this hot dog shop says he would happily check customers' passports if there were no restrictions at all.
Corona pandemic is very bad for business, for my business and for Denmark. We bleeding every day.
But for now, it's just a promise, then on detail, that the Danish government says should be up and running by the summer. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
And until vaccines deliver some level of herd immunity in Canada, physical distancing remains the most potent weapon against the virus. But Christine Burak shows us how the isolation and apprehension that comes with it is having health impacts of its own.
My biggest fear is that the vaccine will not be the solution.
Most of us are feeling it. After nearly a year of social distancing, Natasha Vasilovich just feels stressed.
My new normal is it's pretty lonely and it's repetitive. Do the same thing every day.
She's not sleeping well either, and research suggests it could be the result of lockdowns. An Italian study looking at the effects of quarantine due to COVID-19 found nearly 60% of those surveyed reported poor sleep quality, and more than 30% felt high anxiety.
If we're not sleeping, we definitely have a heightened sense of anxiety. We have a heightened sense of irritability.
Experts say when we're feeling isolated and alone, our brain goes into survival mode. It signals the body to make cortisol, a stress hormone that keeps us alert and ready for threats. Our sleep also becomes lighter to protect ourselves at night.
For short periods of time, those stress responses help us survive. But if we feel alone for too long, they can lead to high blood pressure, mood swings, and fatigue. Doctors insist, even if it's virtual or by phone, join a club or talk to at least one person you can be vulnerable with.
You'd be surprised how many people have things in common with what they're dealing with around the pandemic. And that support helps big.
Support is key, but our brain would also relax if we knew when this pandemic might end.
I heard the phrase variant of greater concern. I thought, oh no.
Big indoor parties and travel may take longer, but experts say people can likely come together once the majority of Canadians are vaccinated.
If we can do that by September, then by Christmas, we'll be enjoying that impact.
Until then, doctors say do your best to live in the moment.
I'm so bored. You're so bored? Yeah, I hear ya.
Vasilovich adds knowing others are also feeling stressed does make her feel less alone. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the world is marking the year of the ox, but the Lunar New Year comes with little fanfare this year. How Canadians are still celebrating, next.
And look who's on the street to bring it to us. The CBC's Chris Brown. Chris.
Well, Peter, I'm at BC Place. The opening ceremonies are continuing inside. The culmination, really, of a day where shows of patriotism on the streets of Vancouver were both spontaneous and unstoppable. Tonight, BC Place was transformed into a wonderland of winter with a dramatic flourish to launch the games. A snowboarder whizzed down an indoor ski jump through the Olympic rings. There were hundreds of colorful First Nations dancers, and then the nations of the world marched in, including the 200 members of Team Canada, led by flag bearer Clara Hughes. It capped an incredible day of high emotions that began on the Lionsgate Bridge, then in Stanley Park, where there was a crush of thousands to see film actor turned California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger carry the Olympic flame. The Terminator, or Torchinator as someone said today, almost caused a stampede. From there, it was down Vancouver's main drag, where Canada's favorite hockey dad, Walter Gretzky, took over.
Hey, everybody!
Asked whether his son Wayne would be the final torchbearer tonight, Gretzky pleaded ignorance.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Mr. Gretzky ever?
If he is, I don't know.
It's so exciting. It's really kind of thrilling.
Vancouver's former mayor, Sam Sullivan, a quadriplegic, took a turn with the torch before it was carried by a First Nations dragon boat across the False Creek waterway and to the relay's end at the Aboriginal Pavilion. Tens of thousands were there to enjoy the moment. But this was a day of protests too.
The amount of homeless people that have ended up on the streets gone sky high. I'm sick and tired of it. I think $6 billion should have been spent elsewhere.
The torch route was blocked several times, including as it wound its way through the city's poorest neighborhood, the downtown east side. But the biggest show of Olympic opposition came just before the opening ceremonies.
I think the Olympics are an enormous waste of money.
A crowd of hundreds quickly grew to several thousand and marched to the edge of BC Place, site of the ceremonies. Still, among them, there were actually those opposing the protesters.
The world has kind of descended upon Vancouver, and this is our opportunity to say hello.
On a more somber note, at the beginning of the ceremonies, the announcer said the night's events would be dedicated to that athlete from Georgia who died. Peter.
All right, Chris, thank you. Chris Brown in Vancouver.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Ice melt, shovels, sleds, scrapers.
Yeah, not something folks on southern Vancouver Island normally rush out to buy, but snow is in the forecast along with other areas of the coast. In fact, it's falling in some parts right now. Johanna's here shortly with what to expect in your area.
It's been associated with Nigeria and travel to Nigeria. And the single case that we've had here in British Columbia was a person who had traveled to Nigeria.
Dr. Henry says it's still not clear if this new variant is more transmissible like the other variants of concern. A global investigation is currently underway to determine how the variant acts and whether it will respond to vaccination. And Dr. Henry is reporting 10 more deaths from COVID-19 in our province, and 445 more people tested positive for the virus in the past 24 hours. Hospitalizations continue to go down. There are 226 patients in hospital, including 61 in intensive care. Dr. Henry is urging people to stick to their households this Family Day weekend. And the Lunar New Year celebrations will, of course, be a little quieter this year. The Year of the Ox isn't being ushered in with the usual festivities, but as Tanya Fletcher tells us, Canadians aren't letting COVID stop the spirit of the celebration.
The sights and sounds of Vancouver's Lunar New Year parade are unmistakable. But this year, gone are the tens of thousands of spectators. Now, the streets are quiet.
Anything else?
Buttercream,
coconut. Okay.
Newtown Bakery has been a Chinatown staple for more than 4 decades. The parade has always drawn a flood of customers here. Today, it's more like a trickle.
During the parade, we just work crazy, jam with people. The changes is, again, only the locals.
A few blocks away, this should be the busiest day of the year at Vancouver's famed Chinese Gardens.
Normally, we have about 400 to 500 people coming through here.
This year, though, they're closed to the public. No dragon dances, but still some decorations, a bid to stay positive. It is the Year of the Ox, symbolizing resilience and strength, fitting in the times of COVID.
It couldn't be more perfect, I tell you. It's resilience, it's strong, we are going to bounce back.
That optimism is echoed all the way over in the suburb of New Westminster, where one thought united a neighborhood.
How do we figure out how to find community and find ways to get out of that isolation?
Elaine Sue then circulated a letter to dozens of neighbors asking if they'd be willing to put up some decorations.
I thought maybe like a handful of people would be interested, and actually we've had, I would say, over half the houses, over 2/3 of the houses are decorated now.
The biggest highlight has been strolling the sidewalks with her son.
Red lantern.
They even made a scavenger hunt for all the neighborhood kids.
And I've had parents reach out to me like, how can we do this for Diwali? I'd love to do this for Diwali. How can I support your culture? What can we do together?
New traditions sparked by a pandemic, ones they hope will continue even when times are back to normal. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it's sweet, it's hot, and it can be fragile. At times, you might wonder how, against all odds, it holds together at all. We're talking about sugar art, And just ahead of the Valentine's Day weekend, we're going to meet a local chef who makes sugar sculptures coming up. And at 6:39, a live look at Grouse Mountain tonight. Nice and snowy up there as we head into the Family Day weekend. Johanna is tracking the snow and cold. It's already falling, the snow, that is, in one area of the South Coast. Her live forecast coming next.
My gosh, we are very fortunate right now. In the last few days with the great cold weather outside, people are getting out, they're being active. Myself personally, probably 50 pair a day. But of course, there's 3 of us here, 4 of us that do them on a regular basis. What we are trying to do is to make sure that the edges on the skates are even, so that are not tilted or one way or the other, and to make sure that we do have a little bit of a hollow in them, because the pressure, basically the long and short of it, the pressure of your body with the steel on the ice, of course, makes you glide. And so you got to make sure that your edges are level and you have a little bit of hollow in them to make things work. It's a little more time consuming when we have to take the rust off them. If they're brand new skates, it just takes a little bit more time because you have to flatten them out and then sharpen them again. Hopefully if they're not walking on pavement or concrete or anything like that, but typically speaking, it takes about 10 minutes a pair to do them. The technology from when I started, everything was done of course, by hand. Now we are getting into the age where things are becoming a little computerized, but computers are only as good as the people that are using them. I've been at it for close to 30 years now. I'm lucky enough to have almost at the point of sharpening 5 generations of one family. That's quite an accomplishment. That's a big accomplishment for me.
It was an all-Canadian matchup in the 3rd round at the Australian Open today.
Peerless display. High-quality tennis indeed from Felix.
And that was indeed the winning shot for Montreal's Felix Auger-Aliassime. He knocked off his higher-ranked countryman, Denis Shapovalov, in 3 sets, and tomorrow he moves on to take a Russian qualifier in the 4th round. Canadian veteran Milos Raonic also advanced. Tomorrow he faces defending champion Novak Djokovic. All right, we will serve and volley over to meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe.
Nice.
Who, well, you know, I'm trying. You're tracking this this storm, and it's already here.
It is already here across Victoria. Yeah, I want to take you right to the radar. We are just starting to see the first flakes fly in the greater Victoria area. I've been checking the live cams all along the south coast of Vancouver Island, and it is just starting to fill in. Despite what the radar is showing you, it looks like it's pretty heavy. The atmosphere is so dry, it's not quite making it down to the ground. And that's why it's going to be hard to determine snowfall amounts for the Lower Mainland, which I will talk about in 1 second. I just have to show you this incredible shot of something. I will elaborate in a moment on the Okanagan Lake earlier today, this morning, taken by Shannon. Just incredible to see the contrast of a tornado-like structure and the blue skies and the snow. The reason why I say something is there's currently a Twitter debate amongst meteorologists globally about what this is. I thought it was a water spout immediately, but then you can see all the steam rising from the lake. It could be what's known as a steam devil, and it all depends on, is that column connected to the cumulus cloud? So some serious analysis happening behind the scenes right now, and I will keep you posted. But very cool this morning, in part caused by the great temperature difference over that part of the province. In fact, across all of the province right now, but we are seeing that Arctic air be threatened by this Pacific system. Just taking you through the models again, stopping you at 7 a.m. tomorrow. This is when the models are starting to show the moisture crossover to the Lower Mainland. It's going to take a little while for that to fill in with such a dry atmosphere. So the range is still a couple centimeters to 10 centimeters for Metro Vancouver. The models are really split, but I do think there's a good chance that we'll see some accumulating snow fill in for the afternoon. This is a much bigger story for the island. Take a look at these snow totals. This is sort of the model I'm going with. You can see the darker blues there. That's the 10 to 20 centimeter mark, just clipping Victoria, and you can see how close that line gets to the coast. Even the southern Gulf Islands in that 10 to 20 centimeter range. Less as we head over the strait, but with these easterly winds helping to enhance some of that snowfall. Well, Saturday is going to be a doozy for the island, and that's why we do have the winter storm warnings in place. Victoria getting a very different story than we will in Vancouver. Still seeing that cold air entrenched across the province for tomorrow, but it will be retreating as we head into Sunday and as we get into one more Pacific system. So look at those air masses. You can see another punch of that milder air move in from the west before we return slowly to seasonal temperatures next week. So if we don't get the snow we want on Saturday, things will be starting off as snow again on Sunday morning before changing over to rain. Still a bit of a chance for some wet snow on Monday, and then, Mike, we finally get into the rain and milder temperatures. So stay tuned for an exciting weekend of tracking powder. But for now,
that's an epic weekend for you.
That's yeah, I'm going to be up. This is a very busy weekend for me, but I'm going to love it. Yeah, from tracking powder on the radar, though, to powder in the arts, it's time now to talk about sugar. I mean, when is it not time to talk about sugar? Sugar art is the process of creating artistic centerpieces entirely composed of, you guessed it, sugar.
Today, there are competitions around the world, and sugar art has experienced a resurgence thanks to TV. Our Gordon Loverin met up with a chef who's been creating sugar art for more than 3 decades as he got to work on a couple of Valentine's-inspired centerpieces.
I was a pastry chef in France, and sugar art is part of an advanced training after your apprenticeship. Many pastry chefs don't want to do it actually because it's time-consuming, is very precise, and is bloody hot. Sugar art is perhaps the most difficult, is a challenge, is perhaps the most difficult technique in my trade. So I like to push myself. It was actually very popular in Europe for many, many years. And many sugar artists work more like in very fancy hotels and cruise ships, so it's around for a long, long time. And in North America, it's just like many things, become popular because of TV shows. Like the technique I use for these pieces are pull sugar, but you can also blow sugar like people blow glass. It's basically the same technique. And the whole point of doing this work with sugar is you do like a three-dimensional object, totally edible. Making flour wet sugar is actually the oldest form of cake decoration in Europe. And is so many flour is limitless. So it's very interesting to try to study a little bit of flower, where the petal goes, with the shape of flower, how many petals per flower, this sort of thing. And it is very fascinating because flowers are very delicate and fragile and beautiful. The color I use are natural food color. Is some color directly made for sugar work, and the color I spray on with a spray gun are actually made specially for spraying on sugar. I always attach some holidays to it, so I concentrate on a color. Of course, Valentine red is very appropriate, and flower, peace, serenity, and something like celebrating to be happy together. We celebrate with my lovely wife my 35th anniversary, and very special. Is a very good time to have your anniversary so close to Valentine. But she's such a lovely person. It's Valentine's Day every day with her.
Well, of course, many countries outside of China celebrate Lunar New Year with unique foods. 3 chefs from Singapore, Vietnam, and Korea share their favorite New Year dishes and why they mean so much to them this year. Just ahead tonight.
Mackenzie is the counselor here at the Hilton Drive Group Home in Dartmouth, and this is where the idea for Better Together started. So Leo, what was the idea behind it?
Well, back in 2017, for Canada's 150th birthday, the gentlemen here decided that they wanted to do 150 acts of kindness in the community.
So what kinds of acts of kindness?
Oh, they did all kinds of things, helping out at food banks and Margaret's house, and they did shifts in the Poppy campaign. They had a big team in the Terry Fox Run, all kinds of community cleanups. They would make muffins and bring them to seniors and nursing homes, all kinds of different things.
It sounds like you were busy in 2017. Did you reach 150 acts?
Oh, well over. We're closer to 400 by the time we finished, yes.
And actually, you haven't stopped since then.
No, they just keep going and going. They have lots of energy. They love being involved in the community, so we haven't stopped doing all of those things. We still, year-round, are taking part in all kinds of different community activities, all the ones we mentioned and more.
How many are you up to?
Well, I can't keep track. It's probably well into the thousands since we started, and we lost track a long time ago. Yeah.
Of course, last year was the pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. How did that affect the group's activities?
It was difficult. We had to reinvent the way we were doing lots of things. So we had lots of Zoom gatherings with some of our friends and tried to find ways that they, in their bubbles, could still do acts of kindness to friends and neighbors and stuff. We took part in a virtual Terry Fox Run from a number of different group homes. All did walks around their neighborhoods. So it changed the way we did things. And, you know, the Poppy campaign, we had to set up a plexiglass barrier so we could safely do our Poppy shifts, but we still managed.
And you're still managing. It's Valentine's weekend, and you're spreading the love. Tell me about that.
Well, they still have flowers, and they made homemade cards and treats, and they're handing them out all over the community. They're giving them mostly to food bank volunteers and people who help out in the community. We were at the Legion with some of the veterans, that sort of thing. So we're still spreading the love. We're just doing it a little different this year and trying to be safe.
And why is this important for the group home residents?
Well, I think it's important for everybody, but they feel they're very blessed. They've got a lot of great things that have happened for them in their lives, and they just love to give back. They love being full citizens of the community, and they love any opportunity they have to give back to others. So.
That sounds like a wonderful initiative. Thanks so much, Leo.
Yeah, it's great. I think they have a little something for you if you'd like.
Oh, I'd love that.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
You can show your flowers here.
Elizabeth.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
We got these for you, actually.
Oh my goodness,
This is
thank
for you,
you.
Elizabeth.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Elizabeth,
That's for the cameraman.
Thank you.
Hi.
What's your evening name?
Hi, how are you?
Do you want to give her one of your cards, buddy?
Oh my
Now-
goodness, how sweet
Now
of
Luke
you.
is part of a group.
I have a confession to make. I'm not sure who I am. I'm 19, and I'm half Indigenous and half white. My name is Jeremy Ratt. Pieces is a CBC British Columbia original podcast where I go on a journey to discover who I am and where I belong. There's racist stereotypes, cultural appropriation, relationships, acceptance. Pieces, arriving February 18th. Subscribe today.
A grandstanding figure from the Vancouver Fire Department turned 100 years young today.
Yes, Vancouver Fire and Rescue set up a drive-through event to celebrate the life and career of retired Chief Training Officer Carl Bud Kellett.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, hey, I wouldn't miss it.
Thank you.
See you in the 200.
Thank you.
Yeah, cars lined up to approach the fire hall curbside to greet the chief with warm wishes, quips, and banter. Among his greeters were his former trainees and working firefighters.
Chief Kellett was born in Vancouver and raised across the street from Fire Hall 13. He first joined the fire department in 1941 and went on to serve for 37 years. Wow, that's a big one. Yeah.
Amazing.
Happy birthday.
Happy 100th Chief Kellett. Awesome.
Yeah. Amazing. Lunar New Year is today. It's most commonly associated with the global Chinese community. But the holiday is an important time of year for several other Asian cultures, which have their own unique dishes and variations on Chinese cuisine.
Yum Yum, our GP Mendoza caught up with 3 chefs to see what dishes they're cooking to celebrate the new year.
Hi, I'm Chef Regina Lee. The dish that I'm sharing today is yusang, which is coming back from Singapore. So the flavors are very refreshing. So think about it as almost like a ceviche, you know, when you have that salmon and then you have the lime juice to kind of almost cook it slightly. There's a whole ceremony on the tossing of the salad. That's the fun part. You basically stand together with the long chopsticks and toss the salad. You must toss it in because if you toss it out, your luck goes out. So tossing it inwards and as high as you can, so the one who gets, it higher gets the chance to have the wish come true. This dish is really special to me because I'm so far away from my family. We would have this every year, and so I'm away from them, especially during this pandemic, not able to see them. But by doing this salad, I remember all the nice memories and also have my way of remembering the cultures and hopefully to pass this on to my children.
My name is Chi Lee, and I'm the chef owner of Chi Vien in Kitsilano, Vancouver. What we have today is a traditional Vietnamese family share meal on the New Year. In Vietnam, we call the bitter melon is khổ quá. Khổ, that means it's a hard time. Quá, that means past. And this is bitter, so you eat that bitterness of the year in the new year. So we know that have the hard time we've been past and we're moving on to the new year. The sticky rice, we soak it overnight from last night, and then we use the dry guk is the Vietnamese fruit that gives you this color. It's natural fruit color. This color represents the red color. Orange-ish red color represent of the new year. Like Chinese, we wear red too for good luck. And the stickiness, it means that we bonding together as a family. I think that food, this means to me that we just get happy, feel grateful that we have the time for our family and we share a meal that we cook.
Hi, my name is Eric Lee. I'm a chef at Milsam Takorea and Damso restaurants. Today I made tteokguk, which is a traditional Korean dish for Lunar New Year. Korean eat that specific dish on every New Year's Day. It's made with a clear beef stock and a white rice cake. The meaning behind the beef broth with the rice cake, which is a clear white, meaning a fresh start of a new year. It's nothing that stands out, but it's just something you have to eat it on a new year. Otherwise, they're all saying if you don't eat it, you don't get old. I hope everything gets back to normal. Hopefully when springtime comes and vaccine rolls out. Yeah, that's what I am hoping for. That's what my family's hoping for. That's my staff's hoping for, yeah.
Oh boy, two of everything, please. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, that's just for you, and then I'll also have two, please. Yeah. It looked amazing, but I also can't believe how much I just learned right there. So
there you go.
Yeah, more knowledgeable and more hungry.
Yes, we aim to inform and make you hungry. Thanks, Joe, and thanks you for watching tonight. Dan's here at 11 after the National. We're going to leave you tonight with some images of BC Place Stadium in Vancouver, appropriately lit up in red for Lunar New Year, maybe Valentine's Day. Have a fantastic Family Day weekend. Good night.
Good night.